Mike, I have to be honest with you. Car repairs is something I don't want to think about. I don't want to have to touch anything under the hood of the car. I don't want to touch the tires because it makes my hands dirty. So this is where you come in. And as a woman, I need to know that I can go to a mechanic that is going to listen to what I have to say or just take care of my problems so that I don't have to worry about it.
I completely understand. The last thing you want to have is when you're going on a trip or something like that, have your car break down. It can definitely ruin a trip. But there are a few basic things that we can check. And also, if you don't feel comfortable looking underneath the hood or you don't want to get icky, bring it by, and for $9.95 I'll do a comprehensive check. Make sure that you're going to have a good and safe trip, that vehicle is going to be reliable for you, and that you're going to be able to make it there and back safely.
Something that's really important to know, and I've noticed with raising children, we have to say to our adult children, did you check the stuff in the car? And sometimes a lot of ordinary people just don't know what you need to look for. Tell me what that is.
I do have a lot of people that come in and they say, I know where to put gas in and that's all. So we are going to go over a few things. We're going to go over tires, belts and hoses, fluids, battery condition, and just some general things to check before we go on a trip.
Okay.
So I have here a nice Ford Mustang here, and a few things that we're going to check first off. Our oil right over here. All we really want to do is just check and make sure that there is oil in there. There's going to be hash marks on the dipstick. So we just take it, wipe it off, stick it back in. And then when we pull it out, there's going to be a normal range. This is going to be the minimum. This is going to be the maximum. As long as the oil is within that range, we should be fairly safe.
Okay.
If it's closer to the minimum, usually it takes about 1 quart to go from the minimum to the maximum.
Okay.
And so if we look at that and we notice we're just a little bit down, we can tap that off. Or if we've noticed that our oil change is a little bit past due, it might be a good idea to bring it in and have an oil change done before we go on that trip.
Okay.
Other things we'll want to check. Your washer fluid level, just make sure you have some in there. If you get going in a rainstorm or if you get some bugs on your windshield, it's really nice to be able to get those back off. It makes the trip a little bit nicer when you can actually see out the windshield.
I actually once was driving and a windshield got just filthy with mud and junk, and I didn't have any windshield wiper fluid, and I had to hop out of the car and go get some snow and put that on the windshield, and I was not happy about that.
I completely understand, and whenever anyone comes in for an oil change, those are things that I do top off just to make sure you're going to have a good, safe trip. Another fluid we want to check is obviously the engine coolant. Now, engine coolant, if the engine is warm, we don't want to open up the engine. We want to make sure that that radiator cap stays on, but there is an overflow bottle, and we can check the fluid level there. Now, this one here is an integral overflow bottle, and so we would have to wait until the engine cools down before we would be able to open that and check that. But they usually are clear, and then you just have to look on the side to see if that fluid levels is in there. And there are marks on there. A lot of times on the overflow, people think it needs to be all the way to the top. There's a mark on the bottom that will say cold full. We just want to make sure that it's to that level there.
Okay.
So the last thing we want to check while we're here is power steering fluid. Again, some will have a dipstick, or some will just have a sight glass like this one does on the side. We just want to make sure that we have the power steering fluid in there so that we're not going to lose our power steering while we're driving down the road.
That's never pleasant. And a lot of these things seem really simple, but they can be pretty devastating if something goes wrong while you're traveling.
Definitely, especially if you have like a belt break or a hose go out or something like that. If your belt breaks, you're not going to have any power steering.
Right.
A lot of times you're not going to have a water pump, so your engine's going to overheat, and things are just generally not going to be a happy day for you. So some things we want to check on the belt. The belt itself shouldn't have any cracks in it. If it has a few minor cracks just going across it, that'll be all right. But if, for the most part, if we start to notice cracks, bring it into a mechanic, have them check it out, and make sure that that belt is not going to crack while you're on your trip.
Okay.
The other thing we want to check is on the hoses. Now, hoses are actually really easy to check. When you just squeeze them, they should feel solid. If you feel kind of squishy, or if you notice any part that's bulging, for example, if you look right here, you can notice it's starting to bulge just a little bit right here. That bulge is indicating that that hose is on its way out. And if you're going on a long trip, definitely don't want to have a hose go out, because that could definitely leave you stranded on the side of the road, and if you're on the interstate or something like that, that's not a good place to be.
No, it's not good.
So the last thing we want to check when we're underneath the hood here is just take the air filter out and just check and make sure. If it has been a while before since you've changed that out, it's a good idea before you go on your trip to change that out, because an air filter can actually cost you up to 10% of your gas mileage.
Ah.
And so if you're going on a long trip, a $7, $10, $15 air filter can pay for itself just in that trip there.
So really, these are some really basic things that can be taken care of that could save you a lot of angst and anxiety, and really save you a lot of money too.
Correct. Especially, I mean, you look at the average tow, just for a tow truck to come out to you is $80 usually. And if they have to tow you anything over 5 miles, each additional mile is whatever they charge rate. A lot of times you could be up to $150 to $300 just for a tow.
Yeah, and I've had to be towed before, and it's not just the money is a big deal, but it's also the time that you've wasted. It takes a long time to recover from being stranded.
Right, and if you've got 4 or 5 screaming kids in your car at that time, that's not going to be happy.
Now tell us where you're located at.
We're at 347 West on Airport Road. We're about 2.5 blocks east of the tracks, right across from S&S Sports.
And this is Auto Evolution. It says, Mike, how long have you been here, Mike?
I've been at this location for about a year, but I've been here in the Valley for about 10 years as a mechanic, but I grew up here in the Valley. So one thing that I don't want to do is I don't want to make people upset, because I go to the same grocery store as everybody else, and I don't want them shying away from me just because of a bad experience that they've had. So I do my best to take care of customers and to make sure that the car is serviced correctly the first time and at a fair price. In fact, my slogan is honest service at a fair price, and I do try to live by that.
Oh, I just love that. That gives me a lot of confidence in coming to you, and I love that you're a hometown boy. I love that about our valley. I think people like that because we get to associate with people that we do business with, and it's great to be able to do business with friends.
It is, and that's why I like to live here, is because I do have a lot of friends, and I don't want to leave.
Okay, we don't want you to leave either. Come see Mike at Auto Evolution.